Well, they had to. There you go. Boy, I wish I could do that. I could, if I started to do that, you'd shut down the show because of static. Give me a bushel basket. I might be able to carry a tune then. But yeah, it's with words. It's with words. And where do you find those words? Guess where? Within the scriptures themselves.
Yeah, I've interviewed a number of people who talk about the power of the word Jesus, and it's quite interesting because I've found that as well. Even if I don't 100% go into all of the Christian structure and belief structure and what have you personally, I've noticed that whenever I'm actually in a bad place, I can just say that word and I actually just feel better,
Remember that. It's interesting. The King James Version of the Bible removed the name Yahweh or Jehovah over 7,000 times if it was put back correctly. And it would be good if you want to actually learn what's going on, go find a good modern Bible where they have replaced God's name, because it's important. Because you get to a place like Acts, the 2nd chapter, in the 21st verse, it says, all those calling on the name of Yahweh, or in English Jehovah, shall be saved.
Yeah.
And you see, the apostles, interestingly enough, came to Jesus complaining one day, hey, there's a guy in another town that's expelling demons by your name.
And then Jesus said, no way. And then his apostles said, Yahweh.
That's good. But the apostles were all upset because, he was commanding demons in the name of Jesus. And they were like, what should we do? And Jesus said, hey, if he's not working against us, then they are working with us, aren't they? So it just goes to show you. Now, I'm going to give you a modern day application of that. Interestingly enough, just about the time I published Letters to Earth, I was just finishing up the book. I met this wonderful, marvelous woman, very brilliant, very intelligent. Never met her in person, actually. We met first on the internet and then on phone. Had an excellent conversation with her. She's Jewish. She's Russian. She's lived in Moscow, Tel Aviv, Paris, New York. She's a designer. She's an artist. She's also the great-great-grandniece of Tsar Nicholas, the last Tsar of Russia. It's interesting. The day before we actually made contact, she went to an Islamic holy man. And the Islamic holy man said, the man that you are seeking, you will find within the next day. And so she thought it was kind of a romantic encounter type thing, but it wasn't exactly that, because I had just done all the research on her family history for the last 200 years. And it's very interesting. She related a story to me. Now, here's a Jewish woman, born in Russia, lived in these major cities. Her parents practiced black magic on her from the time she was 12 years old with the reward of great wealth. And her grandmother actually understood why this was going on. One of their rituals included setting this woman on fire when she was a child. She's got scars on her stomach, but they're not, like really disfigured. From what I understand, I'd never seen them. But she was plagued with demonic forces all of her life. And she said to me that she was essentially being held captive in the apartment that she was living in New York. Actually, I'm sorry, it was in New Jersey at the time, New York metropolitan area, just across the river. And she was fighting. One day she was actually fighting these two shadow figures who were attacking her and forcing her down to her couch. And she said she just couldn't. She didn't know what exactly they wanted to do with her, but she just had all to do within her strength to fight them, and she was losing. And in desperation, she yells out the name Jesus Christ, and they vanished. The next day she went to a church. She actually started studying with Jehovah's Witnesses. Interesting.
Very interesting. And in fact, a lot of abductees, alien abductees, get that sleep paralysis thing on when the aliens are standing around their bed and they somehow manage to paralyze you. And allegedly, some people have been managed to, use the name of Jesus to make them go, and they disappear, kind of like I don't know, they're allergic to it or something, or at least some of them are. Some of them are. I've heard other stories as well that somebody will say Jesus and they just laugh at them and just kidnap them and rape them with their anal probe. And we'll be right back after the break. At the VinnyEastwoodshow.com, my very special guest is author Peter Kling. We'll be right back, folks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is now hour number 2 of the fastest, 3 hours in talk radio, 2 hours, I guess. I kind of get confused sometimes because when you're going from a methodology where you've been doing a 2-hour show for like 3 years and then you suddenly go into a 3-hour show, all your intros and everything have to change. It's kind of like breaking the smoking habit. I've got to stab out that smouldering 2-hour show. All right, my very special guest is author Peter Kling. Welcome back.
My pleasure. So we left off with defending ourselves against these shadow forces. Interesting. Now, you notice a common theme running through here. We have some sort of genetic engineers doing biological engineering on the first human planted on first godlike human. Let's make a specification. Because when Adam was created, the account says that the angels cheered, they applauded, they were happy. This was the next generation. The baby of the family was born. And that's what all the fanfare was about. Now, you see, when you go back and look at the account, we get kidnapped right off the bat. And who kidnaps us? Reptilians. Seems to be a major theme in the Bible. It was a serpent in the story that caused the problem. And here we are, we've had some people say, oh, well, we're being ruled by reptilian shapeshifters. And you go to the end of the Bible and it talks about a great dragon. So there's this serpent or reptilian theme that seems to permeate not just the scriptures, but when we look around at the symbology of the world, all the symbols, look at how many snake and dragon symbols there are. There's two things that permeate virtually every culture around the world. One is the flood story. The other one is dragon law. Virtually every society has dragon law. It's most recognized in the Far East.
On an amusing side note, a New Zealand UFO researcher, just as a joke, sent an Official Information Act request to the government. It was one of a number, but it was just a joke. And he says, "Can you prove that the Prime Minister of New Zealand, John Key, who used to work for the Federal Reserve, incidentally, is not a reptilian shapeshifter here to enslave the human race?" And so the government went away. It took them 40 days, and they came back and it says, "No, we can't prove that he's not."
Unbelievable.
like wouldn't his last physical do? It's like, well, we've got his blood on file. It doesn't appear to have like triple DNA coding, or he doesn't appear to be cold-blooded or anything. Like, no, bro, no. We can't. It's just it's actually more of a fact that the bureaucrats are retarded, just as retarded as the media, who thought that the guy was serious about asking that question.
Well, either that or there's the other side of the coin where they took him seriously and they answered honestly, no, we can't.
Yeah, well, there's a possibility.
There is that side of the coin.
Yeah.
So, We ran into a similar situation here, actually. I do a show on Wednesday nights. Well, here in the States, it's Wednesday night. World Watchers, you can find it on the web or on the LNM radio network, late night in the Midlands. But there was a story that had broke that a researcher at Harvard found a message from God or in our DNA. There was a God message. And so my co-host called up Harvard, asked them, and he recorded all this. Told us we can't actually play it. Well, he did play it, but I don't know if we let it get out on the air, if we put it out like on YouTube and it went viral, we might get in trouble. So, but anyway, because we did at one point, he did say he was off the record, and their response was quite amazing. But he went right through the gatekeepers. One of he got to the science department. The receptionist at the science department said, "Well, let me see if I can find that article." She finds the article, and she says, "Let me direct you to the right department." And she directs the call to a spokesperson for the science department. And so he's asked about, is this story true? Was a message, a God message found in the DNA? And the spokesperson, the first thing that they asked is, are we on the air? Or is this being recorded? And he answered honestly, yes, it is. And so he said, well, I will not say anything further if this is being recorded. End of subject. He said, well, can we talk off the record? And so the person agreed, said, okay, we can talk off the record. He said, okay, I'll stop the recording, not a problem. Which he didn't. And so he said, recording stopped. And so he said, so he asked the gentleman again, he says, is there any truth to this story? He says, well, off the record, no. Well, wait a minute. Off the record, it doesn't exist. Off the record, the story didn't exist. And that's what this guy said. It wasn't just no. He said, off the record, no, there's no truth to the story. Does that mean that officially the story does exist? It's like, wait a minute. That's like an oxymoron, a double negative. If off the record he says, no, the story, there's no truth to the story, does that mean officially that the story does exist?
That's weird, man.
Yeah, it's no, I don't have any money.
I think it more like somebody's full of crap,
Yeah, and so we couldn't. We did play it on the show. We talked about it, but it's not anything that we put out on YouTube. It's just it's just interesting. Somebody breaches the truth, and then all of a sudden, no, that official truth never existed. It's like Egyptology. They tell us all about the Egyptian culture. It's all crock of crap. It's all a bunch of lies. Robert Schoch, pretty much Dr. Robert Schoch, geologist, professor at the University of the City of Boston. He did geological surveys around the Sphinx and of the Sphinx itself. And through his findings, he concluded it and pretty much accepted, based on what colleagues have supported unwittingly in his findings, that the Sphinx dates from 7,000 to 15,000 years ago. And interestingly enough, when he did his ground-penetrating radar search, he claimed that there was a chamber 25 meters down under the paw of the Sphinx, exactly where Edgar Cayce said it would be. And he said, there's something in there. We were getting a bounce back on the radar. Well, Dr. Zaharia Was, the official mouth of Egyptology and New World Order shill, vehemently denied all of this. And he went and he said that there's no truth to the story. It's unsubstantiated. As I said, as a matter of fact, and there was a video on YouTube where he's standing at these pipes that are driven under the Sphinx, and he's saying, we're pumping water out from the Sphinx, and we're down 15 meters, and there's no chamber, and the reason we're pumping the water out is because there's been surveys that indicate that there's water under here, and it's degrading the integrity of the foundation of the Sphinx, and the Sphinx might start sinking, and to prevent that, we need to pump the water out. And then they put up a Red Bull expedition, motorcycle expedition out in front of the Sphinx. Interesting, Red Bull. Two bulls with the sun in the middle. Did you know that there was 96 terms for sun worship in the Egyptian language, and there were 76 terms for sun worship. 72 of them were interchangeable for bull worship. Yeah. And so now here's this Red Bull event that's going on outside of the Sphinx, and it's taking forever. They've got bulldozers out in front of the place and all sorts of equipment. And while this is going on, they're pumping water out from under the Sphinx. They've actually tunneled down under the Sphinx now. Interestingly enough, while this is going on, I had a friend that was studying history, and he had a friend that was on an archaeological dig on the plateau of Giza. Not on the Sphinx dig, but on something else. And he was getting messages back from his friend over there that said something's going on under the Sphinx. They brought stuff up from underneath it. Now, interesting thing, Dr. Zaharia Hawass said that they were down 15 meters pumping water out, and they didn't find any chamber. Dr. Robert Schoch said you had to be down 25 meters, Zaharia Hawass. You got to go down another 10 meters to find the chamber. Well, somewhere they found the chamber, and it became official that they found the tomb of Osiris under the Sphinx. But the tomb of Osiris was empty. Now, interestingly enough, according to the contact that was on the Temple Mount, on the Giza Plateau, he said that there were items that were removed from underneath the Sphinx, and I actually saw pictures of these alleged items that were crated up behind a barred gate in an enclosure. I can't tell you what was in them. It was just crated up stuff, kind of like Indiana Jones type stuff. Crated up and marked for shipment. The night that the stuff disappeared, 6 people were dead, and men in black suits were seen at the Giza Plateau. Why would you wear a black suit in the desert? So, Dr. Zaharia Hawass said, if you're a fan of
what's it called, the Mobile Sweat Lodge?
Yeah. Alrighty, it brings me back to the Gestapo. Wasn't it the Gestapo agent that comes into the dig in Egypt when they're searching for the Ark of the Lost Covenant, or Lost Ark of the Covenant, and he's dressed all in black. Yeah, we imported Nazi technology in World War II into the United States. Interestingly enough, it came in under Operation Paperclip. It was only reported about 1,000, limited to about 1,000 scientists came over, when indeed the number is actually closer to 3,000 scientists and close to 50,000 support staff, including members of the Gestapo.
Yeah, that's what I heard, that there were tens of thousands of Germans who got imported, and they got put into very important positions all around the United States. One of the largest imports, I believe, which was off the books, was their mind control specialists. Germany had a program called MK, or Mind Control, and then they imported them over to the United States, and then magically CIA starts up a giant operation called MK Ultra.
The next step. Now, I'm going to make a connection here in just a second with all this, but there's some interesting things that are going on. We have this whole alien, interdimensional situation, extraterrestrials. The biblical history is full of them. One that I particularly like, which brings some legitimacy to us being ruled by alien shapeshifters, or interdimensional shapeshifters. Interesting thing about interdimensional, they are not limited to being in the same place as you are. In other words, you can be inhabited by one of these creatures. They're not three-dimensional, so they can take up the same place that we do. And seeing as our bodies are only vessels for our souls, we can cohabit within the same vessel. And that's how demon possession takes place, and there's a long history of that. As a matter of fact, when you go to the gospel account of Legion, there were 1,000 life forms that were inhabiting one human body. Think about that. That's kind of...
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of a movie called The Grudge. Have you ever seen The Grudge?
I've not seen it. I've heard about it though.
It's freaking creepy, man. My cousin's husband was the producer on it, and it was just like one of the really freaky things. And it was kind of like a demon possessed girl. Came back to life after she was murdered by her husband, and she just basically sits.